yeah. So
How do you think the international perspective, like people from San Francisco or people from United States, how do you think they look upon gay rights in Israel and like, what do they expect? Yeah, like kind of what they expect. I mean, obviously, like I feel that Israel, you don't really think of Israel as like a
mhm.
place where like gay life is even very like seen
Right,
or recognized. If at least
right.
if you just first hear it. I mean,
Right, and I think that's part of the story that we've been trying to tell. I think most people, when they think about Israel, they think about the ultra-Orthodox community. They think about a country probably that isn't very hospitable to alternative lifestyles. They think about it just as kind of the part of the Middle East, which in general is not very friendly to the LGBT way of life. Um, so I think it is a surprise for a lot of people to learn that in fact Israel is one of the more progressive countries in the world when it comes to gay rights, and that there is a thriving LGBT community there, and that in some ways, I mean, Israel has been in some of the legal ways, Israel has been ahead of the U.S., ahead of much of the world. And just for example, that soldiers have been able to LGBT people have been able to serve in the army in Israel since 1993. And the army plays a different role in Israeli society than it does here, because everybody serves. So the army is more than just the institution that defends the country. It's also the institution where all the diverse population of the country somehow learn about each other, and they become sort of more of a one unified society because you serve with a broad range of people and you learn about each other's lives. And um, so I think the fact that gay people have been serving openly in the army for the last 20 years um, means that a lot of the walls around homophobia have been, that's how a lot of that has been broken down, because because you combat homophobia when you know that somebody that you work with or a friend or a member of your family is gay. When you realize that, then your perspective shifts. And so when you have a lot of Israeli 18, 19, 20-year-olds serving in the army with people who say, well, I'm gay, and they see that these people are just like everybody else, and they're going to also protect them in the time of battle, and that changes everything. And also in Israel, when uh, if you apply for a job in Israel, the first question they'll ask you is like, well, what did you do in the army? I mean, everybody has been through it, and so it also has this role. It's sort of like, um, it gives you some stature, some credibility in society, and so it would have been much more difficult for LGBT people to make the kind of progress they made in Israel if they didn't have that entree into the army, for the last 20 years.
I'm not sure if this is a little off topic, more of my just being curious. How do you think? I mean, I know today they're trying to get more the Orthodox Jews to be part of
Mm-hmm.
the IDF, and like, how do you
Right.
think that shift is going to be for the LGBT soldiers? And if this happens, and which is very unlikely, or um, yeah, like this new like since Orthodox Jews do not
Mm-hmm.
serve in the IDF, and so then they're not exposed to this the LGBT soldiers and the people. Um,
Right.
like how do you think that like that kind of separation and that divide between the religious and the LGBT community unfolds in Israel?
Sure. I mean, the question of the Orthodox community in Israel is a really fascinating one. And I will say, even today, there are Orthodox Israelis serving in the army, but in limited ways and through very particular programs that allow them to maintain their Orthodox identity and stay within their community. But I was just at a meeting yesterday with an Israeli Orthodox leader who heads up a program that is enabling Orthodox young men in Israel who really don't want to be yeshiva bachers to find a different path, and one of those paths is by serving in the army. And so there are growing numbers of Orthodox Israelis who are already serving in the army, um, but um, but typically as part of units where they sort of are kept together, and where they are able to go back to their communities for Shabbat. So there's already some progress being made. Um, but I think we're a long way just from having Orthodox Israelis be enlisted into the army and serving like alongside with everybody else. But I will also say, I think the other thing that I find really interesting in Israel is that there is this growing LGBT movement within the Orthodox world of Israel. More so in the modern Orthodox world, but in the last 10 years, there have been organizations established of Orthodox gay men, Orthodox lesbians, people organizing speakers bureaus of Orthodox LGBT people, groups for support groups for young Orthodox Israelis, and so this is really groundbreaking history because what the Orthodox leaders in Israel would have said 10 years ago is that there's no such thing as homosexuality in our community, and they can't say that anymore. And these organizations are vibrant and growing, and they are marching in the Israeli pride parades and creating their own communities, but also they are now finding Orthodox communities even inside of Israel that are more welcoming. And so these are people who are saying we are religious and we are LGBT and we don't want to give up either one, and they're finding, amazingly, they are finding hundreds of other people just like them who are part of this same struggle. Because I think sometimes, if people think they know something about the LGBT world in Israel, they think that it's all the secular Jews and the people who are not religious. But in fact, there is this really important and significant movement of religious LGBT people coming out and creating community with each other and fighting to be visible and accepted within their own communities. So I think I would recommend that you meet some of those folks while you're in Israel.
Before you go on to the next question, we have to change your mic. Can you put get the wire to go under your shirt or under your sweater or something? You don't want it to
Oh.
the black part. Yeah. Ryan just told me that. We thought it wasn't a big deal, but Ryan chose it. Like somehow under your vest.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I'm just going through my notes. Is it loud enough? No, because there's a lot of noise now. No, it's like the mic right next to the mic. You can hear it. Okay, that's fine enough. Thank you.
Okay.
That was, so coming back to like the support system, and I know that like in Tel Aviv there's a great like gay community, but also like in places like Jerusalem and other like I said like more conservative areas. Where do LGBT what support do LGBT people have there, and like what is the difference like between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, and if you and like how the LGBT community works with the two different areas?
Sure. So I think in Tel Aviv, particularly